Millions of black people goes from their cradles to their graves never knowing the truth. They therefore lived and died knowing only mental enslaving lies. Therefore they live and died while their minds were never their own. I post the black liberating truth for those black people that are tired of believing in falsehoods that literally insults their own intelligence. Stop believing the false narratives created by white propagandists that claims that we made the N-word ours and that using it now ridiculously empowers us. The truth is that white oppressive forces secretly socially engineered millions of us to self-identify ourselves by the N-word. Because words, when repeated often enough, have power over our subconscious minds. In fact, it has immense power over our subconscious mind. Repeatedly calling ourselves by the N-word actually subconsciously conditions us to perceive ourselves through a false, inherent, inferior, subordinate identity that aids the white society in maintaining its social capital and social dominance over us. The reason why many black people mistakenly believe that it's true that we made the N-word ours and that using it now empowers us is because those false narratives have been repeated so often. Repetition makes lies appear more truthful. It's a social science fact. And the reason why millions of African Americans have totally normalized using the N-word is because of the herd mentality. The herd mentality is the tendency for people's behaviors, beliefs, customs, traditions, and cultural norms to conform to those of the group they belong to, regardless of how ridiculous they may be. In regards to millions of us now using the N-word, it was actually through negative media social engineering that white oppressive forces conditioned millions of us to now self-identify ourselves by the N-word. Those who write the people's narratives and controls their media images literally controls their culture. Because people's behaviors aligns with those narratives about themselves that they've accepted as being true. And people often imitate those media depictions of their group that they've accepted as being their true reality. Because white oppressive forces writes all of our narratives and controls all of our mainstream media images, they therefore negatively steer our culture while misleading us to believe that we're negatively steering ourselves. It was by creating the false narrative that we made the N-word ours, and then by hiring black actors to constantly use the N-word, beginning within those white-produced black exploitation films beginning during the 1960s, that they first began manipulating us to self-identify ourselves by the N-word, is now reinforced through the hip-hop industry. Here are more detailed reasons why they manipulate us to self-identify ourselves by the N-word. In order to subjugate and control a large targeted population, the first step is to neutralize their alpha males, aka those possessing warrior spirits. These are the males that are psychologically wired to protect our women and to defend our communities. White social engineering scientists neutralized black alpha males by socially engineering millions to self-identify ourselves by the N-word. This is because words, as I said before, when repeated often enough, has power over the subconscious mind. We function based upon the words that we self-identify ourselves with. This is why men that repeatedly calls themselves thugs are more likely to engage in a fight than to avoid one. It's also why women that repeatedly proclaim themselves as being bitches often becomes stubbornly unreasonable. We literally function based upon the words we repeatedly call ourselves. When we repeatedly call ourselves by the N word, this psychologically conditions us to perceive ourselves through a false, inherent, inferior identity that makes us more accepting of our subordinate status within the white dominant society. This aids the white society in maintaining its position of social dominance and social capital over black people. As long as we call ourselves by the N word, we'll always be subordinates within the white dominant society. When we call each other by the N word, this also causes us to dehumanize each other. This makes it much easier to mistreat and even to unalive each other. They've placed an elaborate spell upon our subconscious mind by creating the false narratives that we made the N-word ours and that using it now ridiculously empowers us. When we perceive ourselves by the N-word instead of as Africans, this also divides us from Native Africans. When we Africans in the U.S. are divided from Native Africans, we lose our global numerical advantage and we're stripped of all hopes of ever defeating global white supremacy. When we call ourselves by the N-word instead of as Africans, this also separates us from our unifying African heritage. Without having a unified African heritage and based identity to connect to our vast cultural wealth, over time we become further fragmented and becomes weaker as a people. We can then be made into anything the white oppressors wants us to be. The white society's greatest power over black people has always been their ability to create and then impose upon us false narratives that shapes our collective minds in ways that give the white society greater power and greater control over us. Brainwashing us to self-identify ourselves by the N-word is just one part of an elaborate nefarious system that's being deployed against us by white oppressive forces. The hidden reason why they deploy so many tactics at us. Although the white government now publicly professes equality for all, in reality it's secretly unrelentingly committed to the preservation of its nation's white social dominance over its black population. There's also an immense concern of massive unified black retribution that secretly exists amongst the white ruling elites, given the white society's long history of racism, discrimination, exploitation, and oppression of the black population. This unrelenting commitment towards the preservation of the nation's white social dominance over black people and this immense concern of massive unified black retribution resulted in white oppressive forces developing an elaborate system for maintaining their white social dominance and that prevents massive unified black retribution against the white society. Furthermore, the white society's exploitation of Africans has provided with an era which has flourished most throughout history. To allow this era to possibly end would be directly against the interests of the white society. They therefore now deploys covert systems that allows them to continue the exploitation and subjugation of Africans without any resistance. The way they now covertly subjugates black people, metaphorically speaking, is very much like the 1999 Black Matrix film. Case in point. Within the Matrix film, Neo awakens to discover that the true humans were being mentally enslaved by soulless beings. Moreover, that these soulless beings are the programmers of everything that the true humans believed. They perpetually kept the humans trapped within a false version of reality that allows them to exploit them without any resistance. Likewise, the white society has exploited its monopoly over the contents that are fed into the minds of the black population to keep us perpetually mass manipulated, sedated, distracted, and kept within a form of mental bondage, which allows them to continue their exploitation and subjugation of the black population without any resistance. The 1999 Matrix film is clearly a practice called revelation of the method that allows the white society to avoid the law of karma. There are hidden rules and principles within this warfare of domination that must be adhered to. The oppressors must make their oppressive tactics available to the oppressed. They therefore often embeds them within movies, TV shows, and books. They don't make the revelation easy to recognize. They do so only enough to meet the threshold necessary to avoid the law of karma. They masquerade it to appear as being merely entertainment, which is the case with the Matrix. However, because the oppressive tactics have been made available when the oppressed do not act upon it, nor act upon the knowledge, by default they've given the oppressors permission to oppress and rule over them. It's a social contract that allows the oppressors to avoid the law of karma. The first Matrix film is clearly a revelation of the method film that reveals how Africans throughout the diaspora are being perpetually mass manipulated, sedated, distracted, and kept within mental bondage, which allows the white society to continue exploitation of Africans throughout the diaspora. They exploit Africa's natural resources, and they exploit the great minds of Africans. First, here's how they exploit Africa's resources. The capitalism European and North America powers exploit Africa's gold, diamond, oil, tin, copper, and iron, rubber, cocoa. And they also exploit Africa's coltan. The Western world's smartphones, laptops, and other electronics will not work without that African mineral called coltan. Africa itself is not poor. It's in fact the richest continent on earth. There's billions to be made in cloth out of Africa. It's been this way for more than 500 years. It's through the white society's propaganda campaign and the exploitation and the unfair rules that keeps and their unfair trade rules that keeps Africa in poverty. That's how they exploit Africa's natural resources. Okay, now here's how they exploit the great minds of Africans. The following will be shocking to many, given how terribly the white society depicts black people. They marginalize us, they denigrate us, and many people perceive us through that fraudulent, but that's an elaborate deception. After slavery was abolished in the U.S. in 1865, beginning from 1870 to 1940, African Americans submitted 726 invention patents to the U.S. Patent Office. For a people to go almost directly from being enslaved, where they were denied an education, to then producing so much invention in such a short time span is astounding. Furthermore, those numbers of patent applications submitted by African Americans more than doubled those submitted by white Americans during the same time frame, in spite of the fact that African Americans only made up 3% of the population. It's by deliberate design that most people are unaware of these historical facts. These facts have been deliberately expunged from the public record and omitted from the whitewashed history books to create a false perception that most revolutionizing inventions came from the minds of Caucasians. This scenario, however, of black people outperforming Caucasians at creating inventions still hiddenly continues. Is concealed by the fact that in order for black inventors to get their inventions mass produced, they have no other options than to go before white companies. These white companies acquires the right to these inventions and then places white faces in front of the technology. The Patent Office has also often been used to steal the intellectual property rights from black inventors. The true hidden reality is that in spite of cultural traumas wrought by the injustices of white racism and slavery, most inventions that have revolutionized the entire world were in fact either invented by black people or were directly inspired by earlier inventions made by black people. Without black people, there would exist no motors, no automobiles, no airplanes, no helicopters. Without black people, we would not have skyscrapers. We only have skyscrapers because black people invented the elevator, the fire extinguisher, the fire escape ladder, air conditioning, and central heating, which are essential in order for people to live or work in a skyscraper. Without black people, there would exist no internet, no cell phones. We wouldn't have cameras and microphones on our cell phones if it wasn't for black inventors. We wouldn't have the accurate weather forecasting system. We wouldn't have the cataract laser removal scope. There'd be no emails, no GPS, no hearing aids, no touch-tone phones, no caller ID, no home surveillance security systems, no home game cartridges, no steam engines, no traffic lights. Without black people, there would exist no refrigerators, no refrigerated trucks, therefore no ice cream trucks, no blood banks, no dry cleaning, no lawnmowers, no doorknobs, no 3D movies, no pencil sharpeners, etc., etc. Most of the technologies that the world enjoys daily came from the minds of black people. However, it's by deliberate design that most people are unaware of this fact. This fact has been deliberately expunged from the public consciousness by the white society's monopoly over information. Doing so is necessary in order for them to maintain their social dominance over the black population. Your perception of reality is an elaborate white deception. Those of you who are insisting that your negative perceptions of us are true, you cannot confirm that. You're relying on information that comes exclusively from the white society. They control our narratives, our statistics, our media images, and they negatively distort them to create a false perception of reality that marginalizes us while exalting themselves. It's time to wake up to our reality. One love and peace.